You know, I had no intention of starting Bajalia. I loved my career. I was in high-end fashion and advertising and was having a great time. But started to hit my 40s and thought, you know, it's time to give back. So began thinking of ways to give back, and I got asked to go and be a photographer internationally on a trip that would document some social good and social work that this nonprofit was doing. So I said yes, and I went on this trip and began just kind of looking through my camera, and that really isolates stories. It isolates the story of each and every woman differently than I had ever seen it before. And poverty didn't become this, overwhelming global issue. It became Mina's issue and Rabina's issue and Seema's issue. And I looked at how mothers were wiping dust off a dirt floor for their children to have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
They didn't have they didn't have an indoor way to live. They were just, I just was faced with abject poverty for the first time in my life.
Whereabouts did you go on that photography?
My very first trip was Mombasa, Kenya. And Mombasa is an interesting place because it's a culture clash between the African culture, an Arab culture, and the Indian culture, because it's right over the Indian Ocean.
Wow.
And the Arabian Sea. So it's just across the sea from India. So a lot of Indians had settled there coming from India, trying to get into Kenya. And so it was a real interesting place. Very multicultural. It just resonated. Me being Middle Eastern, it resonated with my Middle Eastern self. It resonated with, what I knew of Africa. And then being exposed to the Indian culture was new to me at the time. And so all of those things just together, I was just fascinated by not only the culture mixing, but, a little petrified of how women were treated, horrified. It was just like the things that were happening to women in some of these cultures. Even though I knew it, I myself was a product of violence when I was young, and I knew these things happened, but I did not know how easy it would be to solve if we could put money in women's hands so women could have a voice.
Wow. So you go over on this trip and you've got this job. So when you come back,
I was kind of ruined. The first thing I did, obviously, was I went on a 2-week trip. I came home. I had these great photographs. I did a couple of photography shows. I talked about the people that I met. Never really anticipating anything would happen, except that I got asked. My photography was so resonated with so many people that I got asked to go on a second trip. So at the beginning, all I thought was, oh, I'm going to document these stories. So I kind of did the photojournalism thing, or voluntourism, and I went to the next place.
Which was?
And that was India. And then I went to a third place, which was China. And then I went to Thailand. And so for a couple of years, several years, I kept going overseas for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. I was single. I had a lot of vacation. I was able to use my vacation and do this. The whole time I began to then research economic development and the things that were tugging at my heartstrings.
Which were?
Which were how to create jobs for women in a developing world. How women can get a voice in a place where the culture is against them. How little girls could get in school when their brothers are always chosen over them.